So we're talking about solving equations. And there's different types of equations that you can solve. We have one-step equations, two-step equations, multi-step equations, and literal and abstract equations. And there's more we can look at later. But let's understand how this works. Solving equations requires us to understand the properties of numbers. Well, if we understand the properties of real numbers, we can do well in solving equations. So for example, if someone were to ask you to solve for x in this equation, so x plus 5 is equal to 10. Now I know some people would go ahead and say the answer is 5. That's not wrong, that's correct. 5 plus 5 is 10. That's true. But the thing you need to realize is that there's a systematic approach you can also take. So this is a one-step equation, and all I need to do is subtract 5 from both sides. So x is equal to 5. But the reason why, so you look back here, I subtracted 5 because I am trying to isolate and solve for x. And so the best thing to do is to get rid of the 5. But how do I get rid of the 5? I use the subtraction property of equality. Or another way you can look at it is that I basically use the inverse of 5. I use the opposite of 5. So I had positive 5, and now I'm going to use negative 5. So this would be helpful so that when you had x minus 5 is equal to 25, for example, you know that you add 5 to both sides. In this case, x is equal to 30. Again, we can check, we put 30 back, 30 minus 5 is 25. So solving one-step equations and even two-step and so on requires us to have a good understanding of the properties of real numbers. So I really want to encourage you to go back and look at your notes. What are the properties of numbers? How do they work? And how can we use them in solving equations? Let's now look at how we would do a two-step equation using some of these properties. So let's step over and look at 2x plus 7 is equal to 29. 2x plus 7 is equal to 29. Instead of sitting there on your desk trying to figure out what x is without doing any equation problem solving, why don't we go ahead and use the properties we know? We're solving for x, so we're going to subtract 7 from both sides. So 2x is equal to 22. We subtracted 7 because we had a positive 7. We're trying to get rid of that so we can focus on the 2x. So we subtract 7 from both sides. And then we come over here and we notice that 2 times x is equal to 22. So we divide both sides by 2 in order to get to the x. And so x is equal to 11. You can plug it back to check. 2 times 11 is 22, plus 7 is 29. And so we are using these properties that we've learned. You know, we're talking about the commutative property, the associative property, which we'll use later on, the inverse property, the identity property, you know, the multiplicative, I guess, property of 0 and 1, and so on and so forth. So you want to make sure that you read up on these, and also the properties of equality. Here, I use the division property of equality to get x to be 11. So these are the tools you can use in solving one-step and two-step equations. Let me add now that with abstract and literal equations, like volume is equal to length times width times height. If I told you to solve for the width, you know what you're solving for, so you divide both sides by length times height. So width is equal to volume over length times height. And we will talk more about these down the road. So keep working hard and give your best as you try to learn the principles of mathematics. Thank you.